In this video, I talk about how we can place the person back in nature. On the last day of lab, you will share something that you've created that expresses your own personal experience with interacting with nature this semester. You can focus on a citizen science experience, one particular experience that you want to really create something around, or just talk about your general observations and interactions with nature this semester. Expressing feelings and emotions is not only encouraged but really desired. And it doesn't only have to be positive feelings or emotions. So if you experience something uncomfortable or um, negative in some fashion, that is your personal experience. That's what we want to hear about, is your personal experience. So it doesn't all have to be positive. So there are lots of different ways you could creatively express your interaction with nature this semester. I'm going to just share some ideas that you could use and show a few examples of past student projects that they created. So here's one idea, a short story. David Bound from Elizabethtown College has used this in a lot of his classes, he even has a whole class about using creative writing and short stories describing ecological interactions and nature stories. And some of the parallels between a kind of everyday short story and a short story you might be more familiar with, where you introduce characters, describe setting, develop a problem or conflict, then the characters somehow address the problem, and then there's some kind of meaningful end or spiritual end, some kind of ending. You can do this similar kind of thing where you're trying to educate your audience about some ecological or conservation or biodiversity related topic. So instead of introducing characters, you would introduce the species or the different kinds of organisms that are involved in this story. Um, Instead of just describe the setting is pretty similar, right? So you're describing the community and or ecosystem. Then you might want to explore the interactions between these organisms, and some of those interactions may create conflict or problems that the species have to respond to, and then somehow come to some kind of point where you end the story, but realizing that just like in real life, there is no actual end, that things just stop, like life goes on, or um, you know even if an individual life doesn't go on, the life in general goes on, right? So, anyway, there are a lot of parallels between how you can write a short story and do something that is related to your interactions with nature and your experience with nature, or something you think is important to get across to an audience about human interaction with nature that has some personal significance and personal expression as well. So, that's one possible idea. Another idea I got from Andy Klingensmith from the he's the SIFT program coordinator at the Shaw Nature Reserve. So this is I think it's a summer program for, um, I think it's middle school and high school students. I can't remember. I have to look it up. But he uses this project by Mitchell Thomas Show. Thomas Show? Where they make an ecological identity tree. And Andy Klingensmith, in this talk that I saw him give about this, expressed how, the way students put together their tree is, varied and different and personal. And this ecological identity tree is really a reflection of your relationship, your personal relationship with nature. So the roots should represent the roots of your environmental behaviors and relationships. So maybe where you played as a child or how you interacted with nature as a child. Then the branches and leaves are the actions that you think are most important to do to protect the natural world going forward. And the trunk are the core values that you hold that connect the roots with the leaves. So the roots are the roots of your environmentalism, if you have an environmentalism, or your interaction with nature, how you think of protecting or interacting with nature as a person. Then your core beliefs of how humans should be interacting, might inform the things you think should be done. Like, In this tree here, maybe we need to remove invasive species, or mentor other students, or work on community science, um, citizen science, iNaturalist, etc., collecting data, etc. So here's some examples here. If you click on this link, or write out this link into a browser, you can see some more information about how you might put together an ecological identity tree if you're interested in doing that. Another thing you could do is a writing type of situation is a "This I Believe" type of essay. This I Believe is an essay that has it was a whole program that I think is now officially done. They're not collecting more essays on the website, but many of these have been read on the air. I think there was a podcast. It was definitely something I heard a lot on National Public Radio in the past. But these essays are fairly short. They should take about 3 minutes to read at most, um, and that really get to the core of your beliefs. And in this case, you would just make your "This I Believe" essay in terms of your personal relationship to nature. And there are a bunch of example essays where people talk about nature in various, and some of these people are famous people that you might have heard of. So you can go to thisibelieve.org/theme/nature to see some examples of essays on nature to give you some ideas. You could also do some kind of infographic or poster or brochure or something for a citizen science project that you participated in that you think is worth getting other people involved in, and helping them learn more about it. So it could be, you would include in this, what is the project, why is it important, and how did participating make you feel? So that's a way of really kind of focusing on this particular, at least one particular citizen science project that you enjoyed doing, if you want to do that. There's lots of other ideas. A lot of students like making a collage of some kind. You could write a poem, you could write some music, perform some music. You could make a piece of art, whether it's a painting or a drawing, or, I mean, there's lots of ways, a sculpture, lots of different ways of doing art. Make a video. I've had students make a diorama in the past, at least one student did, a comic strip, many ideas. There's lots and lots of possibilities. Here's just a few from past students. A comic strip by Audrey Sue, where she talked about where she showed her interactions with nature through doing eBird as a citizen science project. And I think her drawings are very expressive, and it was really fun to hear her talk about her experiences and show her really wonderful little drawings of to express her interactions with nature in the past, and working on eBird from a more suburban area where maybe she saw fewer birds. And also, you can see some of the dark circles under her eyes, because as you all know, this is a time when we've been very tired and feeling very tired a lot. Maybe you're not an artist yourself. This is a comic strip that was made with a program called Storyboard that a student made, where she expressed similar kinds of things. In here, she has more text than Audrey did, but also really expressed her interactions with nature without having the art herself. She's able to kind of tweak, the images in the storyboard that, and put together her own story. Here's a few other projects people did. These two were collages that I thought were really especially lovely. Taking pieces from other things to put together to create something. And here, the every piece here was from some kind of natural thing that already existed, from a magazine or something that was already around. And like the eyes are sky from another picture, and just a lot of plants and things made into other parts. I really love these mushrooms over here that the student put. And in both cases, it's just putting together different things to make a whole, and then they also really to make an interesting piece of art, but also talked about their interaction and feelings and expressions of how they interacted with nature over the semester. Shay Iyer made a cool website that she is willing to share about her experiences, and also just kind of documenting a lot of the flora and fauna at a particular area near her home. So you can feel free to check that out, like, using this link. There's Brittany did Daniels did an awesome job putting together a nice video that really got across her feelings about spending time in nature and exploring areas and learning things about nature and herself, and has some cool drone footage and things. And so you can see her video at this link. Clara Long did a lot of work looking at mushrooms, and um, also creatively really thought about themselves as being part of nature, as like, what would it be like if I was tiny and lived under a mushroom, and what would it be like to live in the environment if you were tiny? Just thinking about it from a different perspective. um, and I just really love this image. It looks like it's from um, a beautiful animated short or movie or something. I really love it. Mackenzie did this great drawing. Really enjoyed trying to figure out what different mushrooms and things were. I think maybe some lichens too. Um, but also did this nice drawing of what they found. And, some of them were like not exactly sure what everything is, but also experience, maybe could get some things only to order. But enjoyed the challenge of trying to figure out what things were. Um, and I like this drawing as well. So you don't have to. This Some of the drawings are more paper and colored pencil, or maybe you're using digital means. Lots of different ways of making art. Susanna Jacob made a nice short story, like a real short, I guess it was a poem. He says a poem. It was a poem. And I particularly like this part where she said, "Once I walked past President McCartney. She wore sneakers and a fleece vest, an exotic species in her natural habitat. I wish I had taken a picture." Um, so, feel free to read her full poem, but I enjoyed reading her poem, hearing her read her poem in her presentation. Rachel Ettinger made uh, a picture book that she plans on sharing with, um, I think it was a nephew or some child in her life, that really talked about kind of environmentalism and more generally, like how you might deal with invasive species and how sometimes you might actually lose something from an invasive species, but then you can work against invasive species more generally, and how you can get involved in the broader community to help combat things like invasive species problems. Some other students made some really cool things. Another student has really gotten into knitting and made this wall hanging. And this is actually the Holyoke Range, a local. Um, I think this is the Connecticut River with a um, reflection. So that's pretty cool. I like seeing her expressing her love of knitting and nature all together. Another student actually made cupcakes because they really enjoy baking, and did had done iNaturalist, identifying a bunch of different plants. So made some of the different plants they identified using iNaturalist out of frosting or icing on top of the cupcakes, which was really a surprise. I didn't really expect anyone to use baking as a creative means, but of course, baking can be very creative, and I was delighted that they thought of making um, cupcakes and going this route. And I hope they were eaten and delicious at the end after the pictures were all taken. Lots of other drawings. Some of the students were not able to get outside really at all. Anais was in France, in Paris, France, and they had a very strict lockdown. And Kiara was in Los Angeles, and part of the reason Kiara couldn't go out is because there were so many fires and at the a lot of the semester, and the air quality was so bad you literally couldn't go outside. And I love how both of them expressed what it was like to interact with nature, but through their computer. And I really like both of these expressions of that feeling. And when they presented it, it was very interesting to hear about their experiences. So those are some examples and some ideas, but students thought of things last semester that I hadn't thought of at all that I thought were wonderful, like the cupcakes or the knitted wall hanging. So please be creative. Don't feel like you need to spend weeks and weeks and hours and hours putting something together. Do what makes you feel good. If you enjoy doing creative expression and drawing something or painting something or creating music or whatever it is that you enjoy and you want to spend time on it, that's up to you. But also don't feel like you need to spend hours and hours and hours putting something together creatively. As long as you have something to share that is a creative expression, an object of some kind, that you can either show a video of, a picture of, or show us live, like if it's a performance of music or something. Um, as long as it's something that is expressing creatively your interaction with nature, you're good to go. So a lot of flexibility, and I hope I've given you some good ideas for things that you could potentially do.